is helpful with photosynthesis, and potassium, which is the K, increases the plant's vigour, but it also helps with disease resistance. So they're the main three. In the picture you can see NPK, but there's also calcium, magnesium, sodium, and things like that. But these nutrients are really important. And what happens is that if these particular nutrients aren't available to a plant, they show signs of decline, like this. Does anyone know out of the NPK what that deficiency might be?
I thought it was too much sunlight. Erin sounds like she has experience.
Very familiar to me.
Remember my zebra plant?
Anyone have a guess? Out of NPK, what?
Photosynthesis, phosphorus?
No, it's potassium, this one.
Yeah. It's vigor.
Yeah, so it's potassium you can tell because there's yellow between the leaf veins, and you get that sort of dark blacky browny burnt look, and the leaves start to curl, so they look quite scorched and they start to curl. So if you had that in your garden, you would need to add something like potash in order to recover that plant.
So it's too much potassium?
It's deficient.
Deficient.
Yeah, doesn't have any. What about this one?
Isn't that nitrogen?
Yeah, this is my lemon trees look like this at the moment. So nitrogen, you can tell if it's a nitrogen deficiency, if the old leaves start to turn yellow and the new leaves are quite sort of limey green compared to what they should be. And to fix that, you would need something really high in nitrogen, like blood and bone or something like that.
Urine?
Urine's full of phosphorus too. They say to wee in the morning because your phosphorus level is so high, and it's got the right concentration for citrus and things like that. So.
But when your dogs are out there just doing it
Anyway. That's right.
You can't control that, can you? My lemons need you. Get fertilizer.
So obviously by powers of deduction, this is a phosphorus deficiency. And you can tell a phosphorus deficiency when you get that reddy purpley sort of tinge. And it looks scorched on the edges, but it doesn't curl the way that it does with potassium. But the problem is, like, landscape designers particularly aren't taught this sort of thing. And certainly if I went out to a garden and saw this sort of stuff, I wouldn't have the first clue really what was going on. Because sometimes it's not just, you know, in this case, phosphorus or whatever. It can be more than that. So what we tend to do is just test the soil pH. Because between that optimum level of 5 to 7, all the nutrients that a plant needs are actually unlocked when the soil becomes soluble. Outside of that range, certain things don't unlock for them, so they're not accessible to root stimulation and root growth. So that's why landscape designers go and check the soil pH, because a good soil pH is an indicator of a healthy soil. So, like I said, nutrients, they become easily accessible when the optimum range of 5 to 7, the soil pH is in the optimum range of 5 to 7, and so your plants grow in a really healthy manner. So it's, so that's the link between soil pH and healthy plant growth. If the soil is too acidic, for instance, and heads towards sort of the 4s and the 3s, the thing that we often do as landscape designers is either specify a type of lime, or like a dolomite lime, or a compost, which is a great equaliser, in order to get the acidic levels back up to 5 to 7. Similarly, if it's down this end of the scale and it's quite alkaline, we suggest either an iron sulfate kind of product or a compost again, because it is, and compost is usually what we specify now because it's more natural than these other chemicals and things like that, and it often guarantees results.
Should we test the pH of our compost to make sure that it's not too acidic? Because I've heard sometimes people get a bad batch of compost and that can mess up their plants.
Yeah, it can actually, particularly if you're in acidic soils, it can be a real problem. So you have to be a little bit careful about that, and sometimes you have to modify your compost in order to make sure it's balanced. Yeah, so it is something that you can do. But generally speaking, compost is usually a good way of solving your soil problems. So, now that we know the relationship between soil pH and that landscape designers often go and test the soil before they specify plants, we're going to learn to test the soil pH today with our kits and everything that we've brought. So, I'll just turn this over to where I'm going. Alright, I have for you a cheat sheet of how to do it. I will demonstrate how to do it. So to test the soil, I'll hand these. Thanks. To test the soil, we're going to place a teaspoon of soil on our mixing tray. And then we're going to add the pH dye indicator to it so we get a bit of a thick paste and mix it up. And then we're going to sprinkle that thick paste with the barium sulfate, which I'll point out in a minute. And then we're going to compare it to the pH colour chart that comes with our soil pH kits. So if you want to, thank you, use gloves you can. And for you guys, what I'm going to ask you to do is to fill out this form as well. So
Do we have to use these or also have to use
you can use those, yeah. So I need 1, 2. Thank you.
Cool. We don't have enough.
Yeah, no,
Everybody
use the
have one,
plates.
so use the plates too.
Oh, so we're using plates?
You can use plates, yeah.
Oh, good
Yeah,
job.
sorry.
Sorry.
I only bought 4 kits and they only come with tray one. Yeah. So, and so we're going to fill out this pH soil test results table. You'll see that it has a number. Each of the items I've given you, the soil samples, all have numbers on them. And then obviously if it's from your home, just put your address or whatever. So the question is, what is the soil pH? Fill that out. Is it an acidic or alkaline soil? Is it suitable, like as in the optimum pH level for healthy plant growth? Do we need to improve it one way or the other? And if so, how would you do it? So I'll hand these out as well so you've got them.
Actually, that's my parents' garden.
No, that's fine. It's not cheating by any means. All right.
Pens, that's what we forgot.
What do you need? Pens. I've got pens.
Ah, beautiful.
All
Pass those down.
right. So I'll just grab a spoon. Thanks, you're all sorted.
There we go. Good time.
I'll
Put our names at the top.
yes, if you could put your name on it, that would be fantastic. Okay. Has everyone got a pen? Thanks, Deb. All right. So now we're going to learn to test soil. So what we have to do, we'll put our gloves on first. Have you got gloves?
Anybody else need, here, Erin, your gloves?
Are there?
No, I have
Everyone's got them. Okay. All right. Yeah, you can put them on.
The rubber gloves. A couple of them, they're a little easier to
Yeah.
work with sometimes.
All right, so this soil is from my greenhouse where I grow vegetables. So one would hope it's quite good. All right, so what we do, I'll demonstrate first and then you guys can have a look. So take about a teaspoon of soil and put it on your tray or plate, depending on what you've got. This is the pH dye indicator. So what we do is we add enough to make a thick paste.
A bit hydrophobic.
Yeah, yeah. Mix it in. And if you don't have enough, add more. And if you add too much, or if you add too much dye indicator, then add a little bit more soil. But it's not really taking out. There we go. All right. So what we're trying to do, I'm going to move that out of the way a bit. Just try and get a thick paste, and you can already see the colour starting to form. Mix it all in. Okay. Back. And then grab the sulfate, sprinkle over the top. And you can see the colour start to come up. And then once you've done that, grab the pH card, whichever it is, I think there's one between 2, and just see what the pH is. And for me, I would say that's anywhere between 6.5 and 7. Is that in the optimum range for plant growth?
Yes.
Yeah, so which is pretty good because it's my veggie patch, so you'd want it to be. So that is the sequence of events for testing your soil pH. So I would say do around 3 samples at least would be really good.
Just one? Alright, so something more.
As well.
Where do we put our soil when we're done? Do we just get a plate?
Yeah, or you can give it to me and I'll put it to the side of the box here. Put things in.
Just our, as we finish it on our plate.
I
I'm in a container, which has been in the ground for ages and ages. But it's old.
You probably won't need that much soil. Probably about half that maybe. Fine. Yours?
Yeah. Nice space. You need it.
Ooh.
You got it? Here. Here's the meeting. Powder mine, and eight stuff. There it is. Okay. That's looking good.
Okay, looks brown.
Like they're about 5.5 to 6. That's native soil.
That's a lot of soil, Dad. Jeez.
That's just one teaspoon.
You can separate it out a little bit if it's too much.
It's going green already.
You could add a little bit more soil to
The
that
solution
Andy.
is greenish.
See, more soil.
Well, yeah, because you put a lot of dye on that one. Even it out.
Why are you
She
blaming
did
me?
it, not my fault.
Oh, it's
That's what I said, very simple.
Which one are you doing? 2?
It continues to look brown.
I'm
Yeah,
not,
mine
I
was,
was
when we were
pointing
doing
fingers
the
at blame, but it was
I'm
Ruth.
like,
Oh, wow.
Yours was purpley?
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, where's our crowd?
Purpley brown.
I
I think mine is too thick a base.
How
Yeah, that's the potash.
much more liquid is it?
Yeah, I'm not a
We
liquid.
need to-
Yeah, no, you need the barium sulfate.
I apologise. We go wrong.
Whoops.
If you could just be careful with the dye, that would be good.
Have you got a white
I thought
sort?
I do. Hang on a
And
sec.
the nice
It's on
tiles.
your tile.
That's
Be crazy.
Should we mix this in with someone?
Is it on the floor or on your clothes?
Enough, dude. That's purple.
Oh, you okay?
There's the cloud has miraculously
Oh,
Yeah, it's
okay.
okay.
You sure?
Yeah, that's purple. Gone purple.